So this is how you do a double crust to do the apple pie. Now there's a different recipe, similar method, but a little bit different the way you put it in the pie and how you finish off the edge for a single crust, but we'll do that some other time. So this recipe is actually in the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook, and I've used it forever, and it calls for 2 cups of flour, and it has to be sifted first. And my mother always taught me that the reason you sift it first is just to, you know, not only get all the lumps out, but to make sure that it has lots of air and it's light. So I use just a regular sifter, and I use the pan that I'm going to be making the pie in. So you just sift it, and then we can cut away whenever it's just kind of too much repetition. But so then you just take it and you do 1 cup like this. Put that in the bowl. 2nd cup. Looks like I probably needed to sift a little bit more. I always thought that was the coolest thing when I was a kid. Can I turn the little crank on that? Okay, 2 cups. And then, this is for a double crust pie, 2 cups of flour, and, oh shoot, I need to get the salt. It's already spoon of salt. I said tablespoon, sorry, edit that out. 1 teaspoon, that would be a very salty crust. 1 little tea, 1 teaspoon of salt. And then I just kind of mix that around. Make sure it's incorporated in there. Okay, and then, again for a double crust, you want 2/3 cup of Crisco, but you put it in 1 at a time. So I always there's probably better ways. My mother always used to just take a big measuring cup and put water in it, except for 2/3, and then she would add Crisco to the brim, and so that was how she got her 2/3. But I do a 1/3 cup that I wet with water so it'll come out easily. And I just keep putting it in there. We could probably edit this out because this is kind of boring. Okay, so there's 1/3. Let me just dump that in. Okay, now Richard, you need to come over here and because you need to really see what's happening in the bowl. So, you need to get right on top of the bowl. Okay, so I just kind of cut it in just a little bit with the knife just to kind of get it started to being incorporated. And then, you could do this forever, and that would work, but with modern times and inventions, we now have the pastry knife. So that really does that about 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 times faster. So you just cut that in with all of these blades at once. And sometimes it gets on the side of the knife and you just knock it back into play. And you just, I don't know what to tell you, but you can kind of tell when the lumps all start to be about the same size of the Crisco that you've gotten that incorporated in as best as you can. It says to, let's see, I can't remember what the recipes always say. It just says blend that first one in until it looks like cornmeal, I think. But I just keep blending it until there's not a whole lot of different textures to that, so you feel like you've sort of gotten it in there as best you can. That's pretty good. Okay, then another 1/3 cup. Oops. Okay. Almost there. And the recipes say that you incorporate that until it looks like, I think it's small peas. Do you remember, Chris, what it says? That always sounded kind of big to me, but I kind of get that one going. Just so piece. The only reason I kind of do this is so that when you first start working with your pastry knife, it just doesn't glom it all up immediately with the bare Crisco. It's probably just, you know, it probably would work just as well if I didn't do this. It's probably like the old joke where, you know, they always handed down through the years that when they did a roast, they always had to cut the ends off the roast, and finally someone in the family said, "Why do you do that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Grandma always did it, and my mother, and just everyone always did it." So finally they asked Grandma, and Grandma said, "Well, I had a pan where the roast never fit, so I cut the ends off." But anyway, okay, so we blend that one. And I don't know how much of this is just doing it for 4,000 years or, you know, but you'll get to where you can tell that it's sort of incorporated in there then. And you can see it's starting to look consistent, but the lumps and everything are much, much bigger. And that's pretty much, I think, blended in there too. You just kind of will know. Okay. That's just how I get it out of this little blades. Okay, so now, and this is where I used to watch my mother do it all the time. So now what we need is this my cup? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to just get some water. I don't need a lot, but maybe just like half a cup. And
ice cube?
Yeah, I need an ice cube because I might be able to wash. So again, but supposedly you want cold water. Okay, good. So, and I don't remember what the recipe says. I think the recipe says something like 4 tablespoons of water, but I do not go by that. I just kind of push everything to the side. Can you see it okay, Richard? I kind of just leave a little bit kind of right down in there. And then I just take a tablespoon of the cold water and I just kind of sprinkle it over that stuff that's right in here. And then I just take my knife and I just kind of go back and forth, just letting it absorb the water that it will, and just kind of do that back and forth, you know, letting a little bit of some of the dry stuff, relatively dry, fall down into that until it's just kind of forms a little lump all on its own. Just kind of keep going back and forth until it just sort of, that feels kind of solid, you know, you can see it kind of. So then I just take that and I just move that over to the side like this. Okay, so that's good. So that's good stuff. Now I get a little bit more and I put it down the bottom and I get another tablespoon of cold water. Kind of sprinkle that over that part. And then do the same kind of thing, just gently kind of let the water kind of absorb into the Crisco flour mixture, kind of going back and forth. If it still seems a little bit wet and it's kind of not going together, just add, you know, let a little bit more of it fall down of the dry stuff, and just kind of back and forth until it starts to kind of form a little flour Crisco ball. There, you can see it's kind of, and it becomes harder to kind of, it doesn't tear apart. It's sort of, they stay together when you go back and forth. So, okay, that's good. So then just sort of gather up all those big hunks and put them over here with your part that's already done. And then get a little bit more and kind of pull down. Okay, and then another tablespoon of water just kind of sprinkled over that part. And again, just kind of back and forth, letting your knife go all the way to the bottom of the bowl so that it's really, be sure that you're getting all that water that kind of went down in there. And that still feels a little wet, so I'll let a little bit more of the dry stuff kind of come into it. And there, you can see it kind of forms much bigger lumps. And okay, those feel about ready, so we'll scoot them over and plaster them to the big hunk that you've already got going. And if you're lucky, this part that you have left is not too small. That's a little bit, so I don't want to put a whole tablespoon. I'll just kind of do maybe, maybe half a tablespoon. And usually when I do it, this last little bit ends up being a little wetter because, there's just not enough stuff. But that's okay. It'll all work out in the end usually. There, so I kind of get all the other kind of stuff, and you can see it's kind of forming those balls. And that's probably good enough. So we just slam them all together, and so that's, make sure everything's kind of stuck to your one big wet dough ball. And that's what we'll roll out. Now, some recipes call to take this and put this in the refrigerator and chill it for a little bit. And you can. I usually don't because I'm usually in a hurry and I'm running behind. So let's just go ahead now and we'll just start forming that into a pie crust. So stop that and I'll get all the stuff. This is a piece of infrastructure that I've used 1,000 times, and I've actually have several cuts on it from when I make a pie crust that has a lattice top. But this is just a Tupperware. I think it's called a pastry. Oh, right here, pastry sheet. I have it upside down. And it's got various circles for different sizes. I don't actually use the circles very much, but you certainly can. Okay, so you lay out your pastry sheet, and then I just go ahead and use some of this leftover flour that I had sifted that was not part of the 2 cups. And so I just sprinkle some of that over the pastry sheet. Okay, now, this is a double crust, so that means that we're going to need to split it in 2. And, it's really relatively in 2 because the bottom, has to fill this, and then it depends on how many apples you have. But if your apples, actually, when you put them in, come up high enough that you need almost the same amount of crust to go over the top of that. But I actually try to do it just a little bit less than 1/2. I mean, a little bit greater than 1/2 and less than 1/2. So if that's kind of 1/2, I might kind of do it like maybe that. And just pray that, every time I do it, I think, oh shoot, I've put too much on the bottom and not enough on the top, or vice versa. I'm actually looking at what's left. That's probably okay. I'm a futzer, so I'll just give it a little bit more of that. So, see, that hangs together nicely. And I didn't know it. When I was first doing it, I thought, oh yeah, you need this like pizza dough, but you really don't. You actually want to handle it as little as possible, because the more you manipulate it, the more, I think what someone told me was that actually the glutens become tougher, and it makes for a tougher pie crust. So you want to handle it as little as possible. So you just kind of put it, I just kind of put it in the center, and I make sure that my fingers have some flour on them because otherwise they'll stick. And I kind of just begin to make it kind of be a circular shape without being, and I kind of put a little bit of flour on the top. And I've also heard that too much flour makes it tough, but if you don't put enough on there, it just sticks to everything. So I don't know, you just have to. Okay, so that's kind of a nice solid mound, but I like to make sure it's all solid on the bottom too, because when you start rolling it out, there's a whole bunch of gaps and it'll crack. So I just pick it up and see, like I need to kind of put that together. Make sure it's not going to just break right in 2 when you start rolling it. So, okay, so that's probably good enough. So I get a little bit of flour on my rolling pin. And then we just start. And, oh, you know what I forgot? See, that's already starting to kind of crack, so you just kind of get it, keep it going back together when you're doing it. Honey, I need probably just a little bit of water. Can you put a little bit of water on the bottom so that it'll cause the pastry sheet to stick? I think that's what you do, because super glue is too difficult.
Try that.
All right, we'll see if that doesn't do it. I was thinking a little bit wetter than that, but we'll see. Oh, no, that was good. So I don't know what to tell you. Just gently with it. You just kind of keep rolling it around, and see that crack's trying to form right there, but you just kind of keep telling it you're not going to do that. You're not going to form a big crack there. Same thing with that. And you roll it out just a little bit. And then I turn it over. And the way I do that is I just lift the edge up gently against the rolling pin, and then let the rolling pin lift it up. And then you put some more flour where it's going to lie. And then put it back down. Get some more flour on your rolling pin and keep on rolling. Oh, I got a little piece of crust there, and it'll make little divots if you don't get those off, which is no big deal, but you know, since this is going to be perfect. And whenever this starts to be like elongated, like it's a little bit longer this way than it is that way, you know, just kind of work that to where, okay, make it go the other direction. Because certainly the more circular it can be, the better it's going to fit in that pan, or that pie plate, and the less you have to cut off the edge. And it's real easy to sort of let it get thick on one side and real thin on the other. So you just kind of have to keep a light touch to make sure it stays uniform. Now we're going to flip it one more time. I just lift the edge and let it roll around the rolling pin. Might need to add a little bit more flour to that. So depending on your pie plate, and you'll want a good 9-inch pie plate for this. You know, it's sort of how big you need that circle to be. So I guess I probably do actually use those markings. Maybe I'm not as aware of it. Nah, just screw it up right there. That's gonna be a little tuck in the, but it's a little thicker over here, so I'll just kind of. Okay, that's probably going to be good. Feels a little thicker over here, so I'll roll it out a little bit more there. It rolls easier when you have the flour underneath it. So, okay, hopefully that'll be it. So we'll just throw the rest of this flour back in the flour thing, and then we'll see how well this does, how well we got it. We want it to hang over the edge, so we lift it up again, and now it's even more delicate because it's thinner. So you want it to overlap, and you just pray that you made enough that it makes it all the way across the plate. Okay, and then you just have to kind of gently adjust. And here's where I perfected my cursing techniques, because this is where, you know, pieces can break off, and you just kind of have to keep sticking them back in there and telling them that they are just not going to defeat you. A little bit more over there on that way, and that's cracking a little bit. So you just kind of keep putting it back together. It all sticks, so you just don't want any holes in it, because then your apple filling and all the juice and stuff will end up, you know, underneath your pie crust, and that's not a good thing. There's a little gap. We'll fix that. There's a little tear, so we'll just put that down and kind of push it back together. So, and actually, the way I like to make apple pie, I like to let that hang over, and I put the apples and then I kind of fold it up over it. So I probably did not make a large enough bottom crust. So we'll just have to see how that works out. So maybe when I divided it into two, I should have had it a little bit bigger on one side and smaller on the other. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so now you need to make the apple filling part. So we will work on that next. Stop. Okay, so we have a rounded cup of sugar in here, and I put 1 tablespoon, and this is the 2nd tablespoon of flour. Let's see, and the recipe calls for, now, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay. Oh, it always happens. But we'll just do 2 half teaspoons because it can actually fit down in the bottle. 1 teaspoon, and then 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Okay, I think that's all. Okay, so then I just take that and just stir that around, trying to get the lumps of sugar out and all the cinnamon incorporated into this sugar mixture. Then it's nice if you have a wonderful husband, which I know you do, who during all this time is over there madly cutting up apples. So we will go show the technique that he's using.
Too late, I already have one. I'm done.
You have them all done?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Well,
Okay.
anyway.
Peel an apple, cut it in quarters, take out the core, and slice it.
Show them about the thickness of the slices.
Okay. Okay, so we have a quarter of an apple, took out the core, and swirl it inside, and slice about an 1/8 inch slice. So you got to be able to get, 4 or 5 cuts in on the side of a good sized apple. So they're about that size.
Now, tell them about acidulation.
Okay, one of the things you need to do as you're chopping these things, or as Noel's chopping these things, is to put a little bit of lemon juice on it from time to time. So I've got a half a lemon in this little juicer here. You just sprinkle a few drops on there, and as you go, just toss the apples with the lemon juice, and that keeps them from turning brown.
The recipe actually calls for 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, just exactly so that you can do that.
And you find that a lemon is usually 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, the really small ones. So anyway, takes about a half a lemon.
Okay, back
That's
over
it.
to me.
Back to you, Terry.
Back to me. Okay, so we have this pie. Poor little thing, it's starting to really crack. We're going to have to do some operations on that side. But anyway, so the first thing you do is just sprinkle some. Now, I think the recipe actually calls for putting like 1/3 in the bottom, and then putting half the apples, doing another 1/3, and then doing the apples, and then doing another 1/3. But I kind of like to mix it in there a little bit more with that. So, apples ready?
Yep.
Okay. So these are my acidulated apples, which means that Chris has just put some lemon juice on them as he's cut them. And I just kind of do maybe, I don't know, a couple of thicknesses of apples. And when you're putting the the lemon juice on there, be sure and not get any seeds in there. People do not like to run into a lemon seed when they are eating their apple pie. A little bit of peel. Okay. And how many apples did you use, Chris? About 5?
That's
the big
6.
ones? Oh, 6? Okay.
I don't know if you're going to throw them all. I think it's 6 unless there's one I missed. But we bought 7 and there's one left that hadn't been cut.
Well, there you go. 7 minus 1. It's usually 6. That's too big. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I thought you made a mistake, but I should have known better.
I've made lots of mistakes, but that wasn't one of them.
Don't start saying anything associated with me. Okay. Almost down to the bottom. Oh, there's a lemon seed that I saved today. Few more. And the size of the apples is also kind of an art, because you certainly don't want them so big that they're still crunchy when the pie cooks. But on the other hand, you want them to have a little bit of texture. You don't want it to just be nothing but apple mush. So, that's something that you will over time figure out exactly what's the right size for what you like, how you like to eat them. Okay, all done. Now, this is something I always forget, and then I have to try to put it in later, and it's a pain. Actually, cold would be better, but this will be okay, I guess. You want, I think it's 2 tablespoons of butter. And all they want you to do is just put it on top right now. And I don't have any idea whether it's 2 tablespoons. I like butter, so I just kind of put it until I think that's enough. It will nice and melt down in there and help to make the sugar mixture nice and sugary and buttery. About 2, maybe a few more in here. You can see I should have just used cold because then it's more like just placing pieces instead of, you know, trying to deal with this stuff that sticks. But that's going to be good enough right there. Okay, now we have to roll out the top. So we'll move this off. To reclaim our, impoverish the environment a little bit here. Oh, honey, can you turn the oven on to
425.
425? It says 30 to 40 minutes.
Done.
Okay, so we'll take this other little part of the
Richard got a message.
Oh, I see. Okay. If it starts out kind of circular, it has a better chance of staying circular. Okay, here we go. Let's see how this does.
Want some water underneath there?
Okay. And we'll flip it like we did the other one. It's just to make sure that we keep flour underneath it because it just rolls out so much easier than when it's sticking to this sheet. Getting a crack in the middle, but that's actually okay because we have to put slits in the top of this anyway because we want to vent the steam that's going to be forming. So I think that's probably a good size, so we'll just lift it up again. Good.
Let me get that out of your way.
Yeah, or put that pie on top of it. I just can't do it with one hand. Okie doke, let's see. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, if I had been clever enough and had left a little bit more room, a little bit more pastry on the bottom, maybe even prettier, but it's going to be okay. So I just I don't want too much crust around in there, but you want to kind of tuck it in because you really want to seal the juices from flowing out and getting all over your oven and stuff. So I'm just going to since my bottom crust isn't quite as big as I would have liked it, I'm going to leave a little bit more on this top one, just kind of tuck it underneath there so that hopefully the seal can be done a little bit lower, if that makes any sense. fold that stuff in. Another really pretty pie is to do a lattice top, and I do a great one of those for cherry pie, but for somehow it just doesn't seem to be the right thing to do for me, to do a lattice top. So that's just about what I want. Where's my little knife? Oh, here it is. I'm just going to try to seal up some of those splits, just like that. Because it's still kind of pliable enough to, if you notice a crack, you can still kind of put it together. I've had to learn these because I'm not all that good, and these are just things that you can do to cheat. And if it flows out, if the sugar and the juices flow out, they'll just flow into the pan anyway. And your guests will eat them because they're always very gracious. And it'll still taste the same. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, we've got a nice, actually it's a perfect split. I try to make it look like a little leaf of some kind. I made up that design all by myself. And we've got the oven on at 425. And we just pop it in there. And it goes for 30 to 40 minutes. Actually, I do it until I see some of the juice just bubble up somewhere. When that juice starts to bubble, then I know things are good. And there's only one other trick that I might share with you. About halfway through, I take a piece of aluminum foil, I fold it into quarters, and cut a circle out of the center so that when I open it back up, there's a center cut out. And I put that over the pie so that this continues to bake and brown, but these edges will brown first, and you don't want them to burn or get too dark. So I put what I call a little toilet seat over it with that aluminum foil, and that protects this to not get too dark. Okay, is the oven ready, honey? Okay.
Not quite, but sure.
Okay, well then it's good enough. Let's do it. What's the temperature on it?
350.
And what's supposed to get to?
425.
Good enough. Put it in. And we actually, sometimes we do put cookie sheet underneath it in case it does actually boil over. You can see it hasn't always worked, but we'll do that later. Okay. And cut.